Thank you for joining us today for the Alexander Gallery virtual exhibition, Plausible. We're very excited to be featuring a group exhibition that is curated by Abe Zuka Gallery from the Phoenix, Arizona area. In this exhibition, we have the work of Steve Calvero, Damian Gomes, Amber Linkley, Mei-Ling Tang, Shelley Whiting, and Abe Zuka. And this virtual exhibition is on our gallery website for the Alexander Gallery, linked to Clackamas Community College. We're really excited to be working with Abe Zuka Gallery. Abe is not only a gallerist, but a professional practicing artist. And it's been a real pleasure to get to see the work of these artists that he has curated from the Phoenix, Arizona area. As we're up here in Portland, Oregon, it's really great to see a visual conversation between the two places. So I would like to introduce you to Abe, who is the gallerist and curator of this exhibition. Thanks for joining us, Abe.
Thank you.
So I was wondering, could you talk a little bit about how you came to having a gallery and the kind of work that you feature and the culmination of these artists as a group for the show Plausible?
I came about having a gallery. Let's see, when 12 years ago, when downtown Phoenix wasn't really it was still developing. It was still like there was an art scene that was kind of pop-ups in between dirt lots and things like that. So it was kind of a small art district, maybe just filled with 200 people of artists, and then maybe on a first Friday maybe another 200 would come around. It was really small. And there was a fourplex that used to be a 1-bedroom like residential housing, and I knocked out walls of it and made it into a studio, and I started having art shows there, just like pop-up art shows on a first Friday. And then my wife's a hairstylist, and so she was kind of into the arts too. And I started doing art shows at her gallery, and then we got lucky and we found a real cool warehouse space on Grand Avenue, which is like another art strip in downtown Phoenix. And I started doing art shows there, a little more serious art shows. And then everybody kind of meets each other. I feel it's a very small, and I think the art district downtown has gone through its little paradigms of groups just based on age and where they go. Maybe they leave Phoenix and go to some other city, but it's been pretty steady. I feel like the art district's been a good little community for at least the last 10 years. It's been really strong. And now because of COVID and things like that, it's kind of shifting a little bit, and people are trying to find their new place. And so as far as my gallery, it's still there, and we're still doing art shows. And as far as how I found these other artists, Amber has done a show at the gallery before, and I've seen her live paint. That's how I met her. There was like little art parties, and I remember seeing her paint, and I've seen her around. I've seen her work too. And then I had her do a show at the gallery, and there's like other spots you would do shows at. So there's probably about 20 different areas that locals usually show art, and then we kind of see them here and there. So we all kind of know each other sooner or later. And then Shelley, I've always seen Shelley's work. I never met her really in person. I think I might have said hello to her maybe once or twice, but
yeah, that's about it.
What's that?
That's about it. Yeah.
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 And we kind of know similar people. And I've always loved the honesty of her work. And all these artists that have in this show, I've known for longer than 5 years, easy. And I've got to see their art change, and you get to see the dedication of somebody and their independence as they work through their medium. And I think that's what I care a lot about, that is when I look at an artist, it's not even about them trying. You can just see them be consumed in their work, and it creates their own world, whether you want to call it a signature or just their obsession. And then May, I've known May for a while, and I've seen May develop she's an artist all around. So she's, from her sculptures to everything she does, it has an eccentricity to it. And I think all the artists that are on here right now that's what I liked about them too. As a person, they're eccentric. And it's even without even knowing their work, it's just a pleasure to talk to them and just see how their mind thinks. Through their work, through their Facebook, through the social media thing. And then Steve and Damien aren't on here, but they're the two other males that aren't on here. And I love those dudes' works. We'll see them, and I could talk more about what their work looks like, if that's okay. And they're the same type of people. They're just independent artists. I'm not even sure if any. I don't know if Shelly has any academic art. Did you go to school, Shelly?
Yeah, I went to ASU. I finished.
Okay.
2008.
But yeah, all these artists I've known not in school. How about we just put it that way? Like I know them as working artists, as creative people that produce things without grades and things like that.
So just their desire to keep making and going forward, and their love of art and practice is what contributed to your decision for inclusion in this show, Plausible.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Abe. So I was wondering if Kelly's brought up the Alexandra Gallery site here, and Amber, your work begins the exhibition. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about what brought you to art, and if what informs your process. You can talk about whatever you'd like, if you were formally trained, or just anything that enriches your artistic practice.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Hi, I'm Amber. So as you can see, I'm an abstract expressionist. Most of my stuff, not most, but all of it is heavily emotionally based. I can't think of a single thing that I've done that doesn't start there. I started out like when I was way younger, like kid level, doing very realistic portraits, and I did that for a really long time. And then I stopped doing everything because it kind of put me in a box, and just really discouraged me because I could never get it perfect. Then I decided to just let all of that go with abstract, and I've been doing that for like probably close to 15 years now. And I just never really went back to realism. It doesn't do anything for me anymore, make me feel anything. And for me, that's the most important part. If I feel something about a piece that is good to me, if it makes somebody else feel something, any type of way, that's the goal. I use as much color as possible right now. Like composition is important, but for me, it all comes down to like the color and finding the light in a piece. That's really, really important to me, because I feel like with light, you can evoke a bunch of different feelings that are almost hard to name, which is typically kind of like another goal of mine when I paint. I'm really not going for like happy, sad, angry. It's more like the tiny feelings that are super fleeting that you don't even think about. That's my goal. It's like when you see my piece, like it might bring you to like a very specific moment, and I'm like, oh, whoa, like I've felt that before. Or it's just something, even if you can't place it, or even if you can, it's something like that you wouldn't really ever think to paint. It might be like the way a leaf gets crunched or something like that inspires me. It can be that feeling, or even like smells, certain colors. I'll get stuck on colors sometimes, and then just kind of dive into it. It's like Abe said, it's an obsession. So I'll get hooked on like certain aspects, and then just do that until I do it and I hate it, and then I stop doing it because I'm like, okay, well, time to find the new thing that I'm obsessed with about this. So sorry, dog's going at it out there. Check this window. Oh. Yeah, and I will say, like, since it is so emotionally based. The way that I work varies a lot. So I'm typically pretty prolific, but I go through spurts of just not doing anything. Like if I don't feel anything strong enough, I kind of just leave it. There have been times where I would like force it and kind of just keep trucking along, but then I look back at the work and I don't love it, and it kind of just forced me to like burn out a little quicker, I think, not giving myself time to rest. So now I let myself take breaks, and I'm still working on trying not to freak out during those breaks as if I'm never going to paint again, but it always comes back no matter what. So I'm in one of those dry spells right now, and it's a dry spell for me is like making one thing every couple weeks, whereas typically I would probably make like 2-3 things a week, decent sized. So yeah, just refinding the flow and trusting that it always comes back. Not pushing myself or being hard on myself is something I try to do, because it shows in my work, because it's so loose and fast. If I'm feeling like crap and I try to just like fart it out, it doesn't make anybody feel anything good, or it's mostly just make people feel stressed out is what I've gathered. Like my pieces can really be stressful sometimes, and some people are into it, and that's fine. I mean, I don't make it necessarily to sell, but like, I don't know. It's not my favorite stuff of mine. I'm trying to think. And then aside from painting, I try to be involved in the community as well. I've not been as good about it as I used to be. Like I definitely used to network a little bit more and everything, but I try to like curate events if I'm asked to, or just be involved in some way. So it's been just enough to get me into this meeting. So, and the connections you make along the way really matter. Like there are so many, actually, that someone that I'm working with right now on a curating project, I met him like 3 years ago, one time, but now I have like 10 of his pieces being hung in a giant warehouse. So you never know who you're going to meet, who's going to end up helping you out in the future, or just hooking you up with someone who can point you in the right direction. So that's always really interesting to see, like who's going to end up doing what, especially with the pandemic, because like Abe said, there's been a lot of changes. So just kind of like everybody's finding their new place in the art scene. Yeah.
It's really great to hear you speak about that. You know, I really appreciate your honesty for approaching the work, and how, you know, sometimes we have these visions that we're going to go forth and be artists and just make, and then talk about burnout. And it sounds like you have a really prolific practice, you know, normally. And I agree with you that connections in the community and are really helpful in finding out new ways to navigate art and get the work out there. Shelley, could you speak a little bit about your
Okay,
work?
I'm gonna give some props to schools, because this is a school event. Basically, I went to ASU, graduated in 2008, and the one thing I learned from ASU, and they were gung-ho about this, is that every mark counts. They were really into line marking, and that's something I consciously look for in my work. So that was good. And if I were to recommend students what to do, I live across the library, and I chose that apartment on purpose because I love to read and love to read art history. And just use the interlibrary loan system, because you're going to go through the local library and the books are not going to be that good, but just use that interlibrary loan system, because you can find so many ideas and so many artists through that. So good tools. And now what draws you to do the work you do? Okay, like I'm just gonna say up front, I'm bipolar, I'm a bipolar obsessive compulsive Mormon. And that's basically, my work is about my mental health, and my work is about my religion. And there was kind of sort of a roadmap to all that, and it was in my late 20s. When I was 25, I had a nervous breakdown, and then I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. But it was the diagnosis was a blessing. I had never in my work before ever tried to be introspective, mainly because I know as a person that there's a dark side to me, and there's a light and a dark side. If you look at my art, you see that, but there is a dark side to me. But after my breakdown, I realized that that was not necessarily a bad thing. So I started painting about the more vulnerable side of myself. And people started saying, my brother was like, "There's more feeling in your work now." So, and I mean, that was when I was 25, and I'm 38 now. But I still paint about my bipolar disorder in the little ways. Like if you look at Traveling Babies, one of the motifs in my work is I do multiple people, but that's multiple people to show different emotions, and just basically what happens during a mixed manic episode. Not necessarily, but I rapid cycle all the time. I mean, I don't know. They said earlier, they said keep a diary of your moods when I first got diagnosed. That's like, that's lame. So that's just way too much work. So it's what I do with my artwork is basically talk about okay. And then something happened at 27, which is very, very late for a person, but 27. It's supposed to happen when you're in your late teens and early 20s, but it's a family illness. I have OCD too, and there's those pains called obsessive compulsive sequence, and I have there's a OCD and it's called Puro, and it's not, you don't wash your hands. I actually have family members that have a more compulsive OCD, but I have a Puro, and that's basically where instead of washing your hands a million times a day, you have these unwanted thoughts. They're very repetitive. They don't stop. I take drugs from them. It helps, but what I'm saying, basically, I feel like these thoughts. And I was watching This Is Us, and they had an episode, a sequin party episode. Like in the episode, they had a sequin party, and I thought like sequins were so light and glittery. But then I thought about, if I were to think about my OCD, it's definitely more like a black sequin, like something that's just like so dark you can't see through it, or something like that. So that's. So like the pagans have spirit babies. Spirit babies in Mormonism, we don't believe in the concept of a birth happening at the moment. We believe we were born as spirit babies in another space. So there's the spirit babies, but there's the black, almost like cloud moving in, because I will never feel like I'm a good enough person because of my OCD. So and it compromises my spirituality. So that's why there's the spirit babies. And like that brings me to in my late 20s. I had always been grown up. I always grew up Mormon, and I have a typical family, 6 kids. My dad was a bishop, just very typical Mormon girl. But I quit the church about my early 20s. And then I got bored, and one day at the library, and I got Mormonism for Dummies, and it was just so fascinating to me. There were concepts that I had never even known about in church that they never taught to me. But and I read I don't know, like the whole thing, religion. And the weird thing that my brother mentions this is that I'm not big into converting. I don't make religion to convert people. I make religion because, I mean, they say once a Mormon, always a Mormon, and it's true. You can't take the Mormon out of you. don't ask, but I will always be a Mormon. So it's just my like perspective is that, and also, I mean, why can't you just paint about religion? I had a series, it was years ago, and it was when I first, 2008, 13, and it was just my first painting about Mormonism, and it was just a bunch of spirit babies. They were like old guys in pajamas with galaxies behind them, And my brother's like, you're not converting people. What are you doing? And I'm like, you can make religious paintings and just be like, that's it. It's about that. And I've done paintings where it's about my religion and my bipolar disorder, and it gets really weird. But you can just make art about something, and it doesn't have to have any motive. It can just be about the beauty of the art, you know. So basically, that's what my work's about.
Thank you, Shelley. I really appreciate your shout out to schools too and interlibrary loans, because like as I was a student in the early 2000s, I went to the library to find inspiration. And I remember my instructors pointing me to all these different artists that would possibly influence my work. And there's something really rich about making that trek and seeing that inspiration. Your work's very lovely. Abe, can you speak a little bit about your work, please?
Yeah. Hey, Shelley, that was amazing. I didn't know your whole story. I think that was amazing.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. These pieces they're all portraits. I did, this is like a UFC fighter, and he got his nose broken in pretty hard. And you know, these UFC fighters, they're like Greek figures, you know. They got beards and stuff, and they even cut their hair sometimes. I think kind of Greekish sometimes, you know. And then their ears are always cauliflower. I think that, you know. So, anyways, I was just trying to figure out something with a busted face, you know. And he had a busted face, and then I painted it to where he's almost I cut his shoulders to where it's almost like a sculptural bust that you'd put on a shelf or something. And yeah, if you go to the next one, I don't know if the next one's another fighter, but yeah. So there's another guy who got battered pretty good. In person, these are way better. They just have because they're done with oil and there's a lot of texture to them. And what I like about doing portraits is not there's always this thing of connecting the A to age, so the person looks like the painting and the painting looks like the person thing. But there's also this amazing thing with mixing flesh tones, and especially with oil, and you feel it scooped on the brush, like it feels like carnal. It feels like you're actually like making human, if you will. Like it's plastural and things like this. And then this is just David Chappelle, but a lot of the portraits I'll do is of celebrities, but not where they are most recognized as the celebrity. So I usually try to find certain positions where they're more normal. Not, you know, a lot of celebrities, what makes a great celebrity is when the camera comes on them, they know how to contort their face to signify their celebrity. But when they relax their face, a lot of times when when paparazzi gets them eating a hamburger, they're nobody. You have to look at them a little longer and you go, oh my God, it's Ben Affleck, you know? And so anyways, I don't know these were just kind of a mix of this is Rodney Dangerfield had a beautiful mug. And a lot of these people have these great mugs. He almost could be in the UFC fighter category. And when I'm sculpting these faces with this oil paint and sculpting it, there's a pleasure with these flesh tones, especially as you get into the shade. And then when you bring the peachiness, the heat out of the shade into the light, there's just something neat that happens. And then this one definitely with the directional of the brush contorts with his gesture, which I liked. And I like Rodney Dangerfield. I think he was a great comedian too. So it's a homage to. And this was Bushwick Bill. And he just passed away 2 years ago. He was a rapper, but he was a midget. He was like a famous midget rapper, maybe small person, I think, a small person. And he had another one of those great faces. And he had he had his eye shot out. So he's missing an eye, but he was he just had one of those great faces too. And then there's always these cool things where background color hits into the foreground of the face, into the flesh. So there's always that cool thing of refractory light that you can sneak in good good notes of color sometimes in portraits that I get a pleasure off of. So is there like just 4 of them or is there one more? Okay. That's it.
Thank you, Abe.
Yeah.
That brings us to Mei Ling's work. Mei Ling, could you speak about your work, please?
Yeah, of course. Hi, I'm Mei Ling. Just to go back really quick though, Shelley, I think that was really awesome. I really like what you were saying, and I do think that you can paint just about religion and more about your feeling of it, and not like having to do something with it. And really, that's like your version of a mood chart, like you're charting your own mood with that. And I can really relate to that on my end. I'm bipolar as well, or diagnosed that. And I am a newfound artist. I'm not classically trained, didn't go to school for it. I've always kind of tinkered around with stuff, but in the last couple of years, about 2 to 3 years, I really gave in and started doing it. And that's kind of my approach with it. It's really, it's giving me something to do with my hands and my obsession that I have with things. And it's helping me fill my time. And I really like the feeling of texture. And I like what Abe was saying about you're almost like making a human. It's like that, like you're creating something and you're starting to feel the texture and the shape of it. And you're like, okay, what can I do with this? For example, this one is I had an old medical display from the old 1800s that was breaking and they were going to throw it away. And I was like, please just give it to me. I don't know what to do with it, but like, I will learn how to do something with it. And this is made out of wax from that display that was breaking, that they were just going to throw away. And it's like, I really like finding materials and just obsessing about it, like touching it. How can I shape it? How can I mold it? What does it look like when I do this? How can I create something different with it? And always kind of just, it's like a self-study, like you're teaching yourself what to do with it and learning different ways. This is a multimedia piece. It is the same thing. It has like a lot of things that I found. This is like an old TV. I'm really obsessed with rust. The color in itself is just amazing. It's something that is natural and it's happening to the metal. It's already making art on its own. And so I start adding on things to it, different materials to imitate that or to start to mix in with that. Like on the top is just plaster that I'm learning how to paint and color to match the rust, and really kind of paying homage to that natural texture and color of things. This is, yeah, it's my interpretation of concrete and really like learning how to use that. I always kind of go back to metal. So I put metal into this, and then like really I just get a lot of inspiration from natural things. Like I was really just eating quail eggs at my house, and that's what these are. I was like, wow, these are beautiful. Like they're so beautiful. How can I keep these in this shape? Like, because I was learning how to like hit them and then take them as shooters. So that's why they're like have these perfect little holes on the top. And the broken ones, it was so cool how they kind of just, they weren't crushing all of the way. So it's like, how can I preserve that? And I really taught myself different ways to preserve that and then to put it into something that I feel also had that same texture, which is like broken down concrete. I feel like it has that same cracking and those same edges, and just trying to mix those things together to see what will happen. Yeah, I have a very big obsession with metal and light. Concrete, same thing. It's like it's breaking and it's moving, and it's giving me this obsessive thing of like how to make it look in the shape that I want it to, while keeping the way it happens in nature. What happens when it starts to break down? It's getting thinner in one spot. This part is breaking out of it, and re-imitating that, I think, is really cool. But yeah, is that all the pieces? I think that's it, right? Yeah.
Did you want me to talk about Damon stuff? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry,
I-
that'd be great, Abe.
Okay,
Thank you
okay.
so much.
I'm gonna try to do my best with Justice. He has his own way of explaining things. I'm sure he'll probably hate everything I say. But I wouldn't say anything I wouldn't say to his face. He's rough. He works in the moment, and he's one of those guys that says, I'm gonna do art. I don't. There's no one's gonna say I'm not gonna do it or something. It's like one of those things. He doesn't need a degree. He doesn't need like some like successful artist to tell him he's an artist or not. He does his thing, and I mean, he really is he's actually does all these pieces out of Jerome, Arizona right now. He's been a resident there, he has a studio, like a big art studio, and he's been there since COVID started, I think. So he's been there for a couple years, and he loves working rough. I mean, it's like scrawling or like a bird, like bird claws. I feel there's just this amazing etching in of paint, and then all the stuff that is on the side of the brush. If for anybody who paints a lot, there's that metal on the brush that holds the bristles in, and that thing is so violent sometimes. And if you really just start slamming the side of the brush against it and just starts clawing away. And that's what I've always loved about him. Yeah.
Sorry, I've seen him paint before, and he like hits that shit really hard.
It's like he does sculpture too. He does some wood. I've seen him do some wood sculpture. But yeah, when he's painting, he's really trying to get that 2 dimension to be more than that by either breaking through it or clawing away at the little edges of the marks. Well, he sent you a lot of stuff. Okay, cool. Yeah, you can kind of tell they're in person, and if you see the body of his work, you get these sentences or whatever you want to call it, these detours. I mean, he's been painting for a while, and he has some collectors that have really invested in some of his stuff. And then he loves one of his favorite painters is Fritz Scholder, who's a Native American painter, a Southwest. And he kind of came from like a Francis Bacon influence. And, it just goes further. I mean, this is you can just feel the human marking of it. This isn't what a printer does. This is what a broken printer does or something. It's just, it just swings every which way. It's like, it's wild in nature. It's like if you put a bunch of animals in a cage and put paint on their claw, on their hands and feet, they'd make markings similar to something. Is this Steve?
Yes, this is Steve.
Okay. This is Steve. So what's neat about Steve does a lot of different, he does landscapes, he does figurative. All of Steve's stuff comes from his head. Like he completely goes here with his brush, and he's kind of, I wouldn't say he's the opposite of Damon, the last artist. He loves wet on wet. He loves slick. He moves the paint with like kind of like a water. It has a watery flow to it. And then he loves hitting stuff up with highlights. So he can do really clean desert landscapes. And then, yeah, like all these things just come from his head, and he just feels these moods and these colors. And then he loves painting wet on wet. So I believe this is all acrylic that's here right here. Yeah, very impressionistic, and this is you see these are rough and the dripping and stuff. Yeah, these are just, he just does these just out of impulse. And then nothing comes to him, and then something does. He goes through these moods of like painting landscapes for a half a year, and then he'll go into something else. Yeah. So yeah, that's Steve's.
Wow. Thank you so much, Abe.
Yeah.
So I would like to open it up to any questions that anybody has for the artists.
Remy, if you would like to go ahead and unmute yourself, you can ask your question that you wrote in there, or I
Okay,
can read it.
I don't mind reading it. Thank you. Thank you so much for all the presentations. That was really cool to look at. I had a specific question for Mei Ling Tang. Am I saying her last name right?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Like the orange juice.
Okay, awesome. So I was wondering, with the type of work that you do you oftentimes have like a clear vision in the beginning, or as far as like what meaning it might or what significance it might have for you or others, or do you find that it like shifts as you work with the material and as you like experience working with it?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think I generally have an idea going in, but yeah, it completely changes most of the time because it's like it's how it's moving with like the material itself, and I'm like, and it looks, it's like almost like what Abe was saying, it's like that feeling of doing something, and I'll get into that feeling and I'll just keep wanting to do that, and I'm like, okay, well, I like that, I like the way that feels, that texture, that, and it'll start to build off that, and it'll take over and change it, you know. But yeah, it typically changes drastically from what I was thinking in the beginning, but I think that's the really fun part.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I have a question for Shelley. Shelley, as we were looking at all of your different works, I believe that I heard you talk about each of the figures was an example of your personality that you've experienced. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And is that true? Did I understand that correctly?
So Shelley's muted, and so you'll have to go down to your, there you go, wonderful.
Okay, okay, go ahead.
Oh, I was just recapping that. I believe that I heard that you said that each of the figures in your paintings was a representation of a different personality you feel like you've experienced. And
Okay, if you're bipolar, and especially if you rapid cycle throughout the day, like I mean, it's, if you've ever, for me, mania is like a kid having too much candy and feeling really bad afterwards, and I'm manic all the time. So I feel like crap a lot. So basically, like, I mean, people that know me know that, you know, I can be pretty intense, and that's about the different moods. But some days I can be pretty flat. I mean, I think everyone is, but so that's like the multiple figures is yeah, it's bipolar. I mean, it's not literally bipolar, but that's it's always going to be a part of me, and it's always going to be in my paintings whether I intend to or not. So that is just a motif I've had for probably like 10, well, actually 13 years now. So
thank you so much. Do we have any more questions?
Yeah, I have one that that goes out to all the artists here, or instructors, really anyone who could help. So in the past summer, I've been doing a lot of things in the street art community in Portland because it's very big here, and I've been making a ton of connections with people. I've been meeting a lot of people, like really sick artists that, you know, they're incredible, and you can't, as you've noticed, you can't really base your opinion on artists on how popular they are, because you could have, you know, someone who has no following who's better than one of the best, right? And something that's a problem here is that if you want to do a pop-up art gallery, you kind of have to be one of the big guys to be able to do that. You know, they have all the connects. How would you suggest that someone like me could organize like a small pop-up gallery that can have everyone else involved and have it, you know, work out, find a place?
I mean, I would start talking to local businesses first. If you could find people that are supportive of the arts in general, that's where I would start, because they might not be quite as biased with knowing like who's a big guy and who's a little guy, but maybe if they just like your work or like you even, and you make a good connection with them, I would start with businesses. Like if it's a restaurant, cafe, even though it's not like an ideal gallery space, it's a starting point. And then that goes well. You never know who's going to walk through there. It could be like a gallery person or someone that's involved with the galleries. And I don't know, maybe word could travel. That's my idea.
All right, thank you. That helps.
I also
Um,
think, sorry. Go
Oh, I
ahead.
was
No,
gonna say, I think
I
Abe
was
could be
I
a
was
really
just
good
trying to
person.
think if
Yeah, for that.
it,
Because it's, I mean, you throw pop-ups all the time, and it's like, I love, you kind of started when it wasn't happening all the time. Like you made your own pop-ups, you know?
yeah, I just think if you walk outside your house or wherever everybody has like a path to their store or to where they go to see other artists. Somewhere in those journeys inside the place that you're meeting people, you're seeing people. And without trying, you just got to keep being around that area, leaving a mark somehow. If that means saying hello, or if that means putting a sticker on some, it's very abstract that you need to leave a certain shadow of yourself all the time, not drastically. A lot of people get so insane or something and they get in trouble, maybe. I don't know. But I think there's when you study that path where you're walking all the time, I think you're gonna start finding out where you could leave a mark. And it could be anything. And you ask yourself a question: how can I remember that I walked past here? Or how can I remember that I met somebody? I don't know. But there's something about that space that you're in. It seems empty, but it's probably there's hints there of where you're supposed to be putting your art. That sounds so spiritual. I'm thinking of this book. It's called Rebecca Sonlit wrote it. It's called Walk. It's like a book on walking. And she's a very artistic person, Rebecca Sonlit. If you put something in there, I just read it. And so that's what I'm riffing on her. I'm just stealing that shit. So
But I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
And if you ever come to Phoenix, Abe has definitely left his mark on almost every pole or post that you walk by in the art, area. It has a sticker of his or something that, and sometimes it doesn't even say his name on it. It's just like, you just know that it's his. It's something that he wrote.
Yo, man.
He kind of has a identity.
Not only that, but your Facebooks, man, they are funny. Like the Amazon thing. You know.
my new one's it's Abe's abs. And I'm taking pictures of my abs or someone else's abs. You're never gonna know.
Swarley, you have a question?
Yes, actually for the man with the beautiful abs, or not his abs, we won't ever know. They're abs. You describe some of your paintings, in particularly with the fighters, as going all the way back to, Greek times. And the way that you paint the characters and have that resemblance, going back and forth from, we're talking, a lot of time in between that, there's also this sense of not comparison of a lot together. And it's interesting to see that you make that comparison going all the way back. I was wondering if there was any more thoughts as to what you were thinking about that, if there's more of like a cultural aspect that carries over for you, or spiritually that's what you connect back to.
Yeah, I don't think so. I honestly was just saying, I don't know. There's certain things that you don't know why you did them until after, and then you start making answers. I think that happens a lot with a lot of stuff I paint. I can start making answers after. I almost feel like I kind of made that up right now when I was explaining. I was like, I don't know why I cut them square at the bottom, but I think but they were kind of framed out. But if you go below it, I put their full name, almost like they would do that too. Actually, probably in Greek statues, they'd put Maximus or something. Roman, maybe more Roman than Greek. But yeah, I was just riffing on just why did I do that? And and another thing is you're always kind of, if you're always getting kind of tired of your last piece of art. So you're kind of, you don't hate it, but you always want to try to get a little tired of it and try to do whatever it means better or different. Or just more accompanying. Maybe it's lonely. So you're tired of it being so lonely. So you make a couple duplicates of it. I don't know. It's just, there's always something, at least for me, there's always something of my last piece that I'm going to my next piece with.
Interesting you bring that last tidbit up. I don't know if any other artists feel this, but usually the moment where I start hating the painting is usually where I start connecting with it. Thoughts about that?
Yeah, I do metal work and I get really upset a lot. I break a lot of things. So yeah, I totally understand that. Or if it starts not going the way that I want it to, I have definitely taken saws and things to pieces. But then sometimes it's like you figure out a different way to do that. It didn't go the way that you wanted, and then you're figuring out a different way because of it, and it actually makes it cooler. Like it changes the direction of it because you can't do it the way that it was in your brain.
Nice. I have put the link to our gallery in the chat. So if you haven't been out to see there, Remy asked about the names of the artists, and the names are all written on that website. So if you click on that link, it'll take you out to the works that you just saw.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. And thank you so much, Abe, for curating this.
Yeah. And thank you guys for all you guys that participated and when I reached out. That's awesome.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Abe.
All right. See ya.